The rain battered the diner's windows like it was trying to break in, but inside, the world felt still, too still, like the air was holding its breath. I sat across from Ellie, my not-quite-sister, her blonde curls catching the glow of the jukebox, and something in my chest twisted so hard I thought I'd crack open. At 23, I wasn't supposed to feel this way. Not about her, not ever. We weren't blood, but we were family. Our parents married when Riley, was 10 and Ellie was 8, blending our lives in a small Oregon town where everyone knew everyone's secrets. Back then, she was just the annoying kid trailing me, stealing my headphones, begging for piggyback rides.
But now?
Now, she was 21, all sharp wit and soft smiles, and I was drowning in the way her laugh lit up this dingy diner. The realization hit me like a freight train. I was in love with her, and it terrified me. The diner smelled of coffee and fried onions, a comfort that clashed with the storm in my head. Ellie leaned forward, her green eyes catching mine, and said, "Riley, you're staring again." Her voice was teasing, but there was a flicker of something else, something that made my pulse race. I forced a grin, muttering, "Just wondering how you got so annoying." She laughed, tossing a sugar packet at me. "You love me anyway." The words hung there, innocent but heavy, and I wanted to scream that she had no idea how true that was. Instead, I sipped my coffee, burning my tongue, and tried to bury the truth. In a town like ours, where church was king and whispers spread faster than wildfire, loving her wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. Growing up, we'd been inseparable. Ellie was the sunshine to my storm, always pulling me out of my brooding with her wild ideas, like sneaking into the old theater to watch grainy horror flicks or stargazing on the roof until dawn. I was the tough one, the girl with the leather jacket and the chip on her shoulder, always ready to throw a punch for her. But this feeling wasn't sisterly. It was raw, electric, and it scared me more than any fight I'd ever been in. That night, as the rain slowed to a drizzle, we walked home, our shoulders brushing under my umbrella. The town was quiet, the kind of quiet that amplifies every thought. Ellie hummed softly some old song from the jukebox, and I wondered if she felt it too. The pull, the spark. "You ever think about leaving this place?" she asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. I glanced at her, her face half lit by a street lamp, and my heart ached. "Every day," I said, "but not without you." Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, the world stopped. Then she smiled, soft and sad, and said, "You're stuck with me, Ree." I wanted to tell her everything right then. How her smile was my anchor, how her touch made me forget how to breathe. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. Back home, our parents were asleep, the house creaking under the weight of its own secrets. Ellie's room was across from mine, and as we parted ways in the hallway, she grabbed my hand. "Night, big sis," she said, her fingers lingering. I stood there, frozen, as she disappeared into her room, the door clicking shut like a lock on my heart. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, when every beat of my pulse screamed her name? The next morning, the town buzzed with its usual rhythm, tractors rumbling, church bells chiming, neighbors gossiping over picket fences. I worked at the auto shop, grease under my nails, trying to focus on engines instead of Ellie. But she was everywhere, in the songs on the radio, in the way the sunlight hit the pavement. By noon, I was a mess, snapping at coworkers and dropping tools. My boss, Mike, raised an eyebrow. "You okay, Riley? You look like you're fighting a ghost." I wanted to laugh. A ghost would have been easier. Instead, I mumbled something about a bad night and kept working. But the truth was clawing at me. I couldn't keep pretending. Ellie wasn't just my sister, not in my heart. And that truth was a ticking bomb in a town that didn't forgive. That evening, Ellie texted me to meet her at the lake, our old hangout spot. I found her on the dock, barefoot, her jeans rolled up as she dangled her feet in the water. The sunset painted her in gold, and I felt like I was falling all over again. "You're late," she said, smirking, but her eyes were serious. "We need to talk, Ree." My stomach dropped. Did she know? Had she seen it in my eyes, heard it in my voice? I sat beside her, the water lapping at the dock, and waited for the world to end. She took a deep breath, her hands twisting in her lap. "I'm leaving," she said. "I got into that art program in Seattle. I'm going next month." The words hit like a punch. Seattle was a world away, 400 miles, a different universe. I stared at her, my throat tight. "You're leaving?" I echoed, my voice cracking. She nodded, eyes shimmering with tears. "I have to, Ree. This town, it's suffocating me." I wanted to beg her to stay, to tell her I'd follow her anywhere, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I grabbed her hand, my callous fingers wrapping around hers. "I'm happy for you." I lied, my heart splintering. She squeezed my hand back, and for a moment I thought she might say something that would change everything. But she just leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat there, silent, as the sun sank below the horizon. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Ellie was leaving, and I was losing her before I'd even had the courage to tell her how I felt. But maybe that was the point. Maybe love like this, wrong, impossible, was meant to stay buried. Or maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to fight for it. The days after Ellie's announcement felt like walking through fog. Everything blurred, heavy, unreal. I'd catch myself watching her at breakfast, her laughter slicing through me, and I'd have to look away before I drowned in it. Loving her was a secret I carried like a bruise, tender and hidden, but impossible to ignore. The town didn't help. Our small corner of Oregon was a place where change came slow and acceptance slower. I'd heard the whispers at the gas station, seen the glares at pride flags in nearby cities. If I told Ellie how I felt, it wouldn't just be our family at stake. It'd be our place in this world. But with her leaving for Seattle in a month, every moment felt like a countdown. I threw myself into work at the auto shop, hoping the grind of metal and oil would drown out my thoughts. It didn't. Every wrench I turned, every engine I fixed, Ellie was there, in the rhythm of my hands, in the ache of my chest. One afternoon, Mike caught me staring at nothing, a spark plug forgotten in my hand. "Riley, you're scaring me," he said, half joking. "You got a fever or something?" "Something," I muttered, tossing the spark plug onto the workbench. I couldn't tell him the truth, that my heart was a traitor, that I was in love with the girl I'd grown up calling sister. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and headed out, needing air, needing space, needing her. I found Ellie at the library, her favorite hideout. She was curled up in a corner with a sketchbook, her pencil dancing across the page. I slid into the seat across from her, my boots scuffing the floor. "What's that?" I asked, nodding at her drawing. She flipped it toward me, a sketch of the lake, our dock, the sunset. But there, in the corner, were two figures, one with short hair, one with curls, hands almost touching. My breath caught. "That's us," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Ellie's cheeks flushed, and she shrugged. "Yeah, well, you're always there, Ree." Her words were casual, but her eyes held mine too long, and I wondered if she felt it too, the pull that was tearing me apart. That night, we ended up at the diner again, our safe haven. The jukebox played some old Springsteen tune, and Ellie was quieter than usual, picking at her fries. "You're gonna miss this place," I said, trying to keep things light. She looked up, her eyes searching mine. "Not the town," she said. "You." My heart stopped. I wanted to reach across the table, to tell her everything, but fear clamped down hard. Instead, I said, "You'll be fine in Seattle. You're gonna take that city by storm." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "What if I don't want to go alone?" she asked, her voice so soft I almost missed it. The question hung between us, a spark in the dark. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What could I say? That I'd follow her? That I loved her in a way I wasn't supposed to? Before I could find the words, she stood, tossing her napkin on the table. "Forget it," she said, her voice tight. "I'm tired. Let's go home." The walk back was silent, the air thick with things unsaid. When we reached the house, Ellie paused at the door, her hand on the knob. "I'd go anywhere for you," I said, the truth slipping out before I could stop it. Her lips parted, and for a heartbeat, I thought she'd say something that would change everything. But then she nodded, slipped inside, and left me standing in the dark. The next day, I couldn't focus. At the shop, I dropped a wrench on my foot, cursed loud enough to earn a glare from Mike. My head was a mess. Ellie's question, her eyes, the way her voice had trembled. I was losing her, and I hadn't even told her the truth. That evening, I found her at the lake again, this time painting. The canvas was alive with color, a storm of blues and golds, and I saw us in it. Two figures, blurred but unmistakable. "Ellie," I said, sitting beside her. "Why'd you ask me to come with you?" She froze, her paintbrush hovering. "Because," she said finally, "you're my home, Ree. More than this town, more than anything." Her words were a knife, cutting through every wall I'd built. I wanted to tell her then, to confess everything, but the fear was still there, a shadow I couldn't shake. Instead, I took her hand, my thumb brushing over her knuckles. "You're my home too," I said, my voice rough. She looked at me, her eyes shimmering, and for a moment, I thought she might lean closer. But then she pulled back, smiling faintly. "Good," she said. "Then we're not lost yet." That night, I lay awake, her words echoing in my head. She was leaving, and I was running out of time. I had to tell her, had to risk it all. But the thought of her rejection, of losing her completely, was a weight I wasn't sure I could carry. In a town that judged, in a family that wouldn't understand, love like this felt like a rebellion. And maybe that's what it was. The weeks blurred, each day a step closer to Ellie's departure. I was a live wire, every glance from her sparking something I couldn't control. Love was supposed to be freedom, but this felt like a cage, one I'd built myself, bar by bar, with fear and silence. Our parents noticed the tension. At dinner, Mom's eyes darted between us, her fork hovering. "You two fighting?" she asked, her tone light but probing. Ellie and I exchanged a glance, her foot nudging mine under the table, a secret code from childhood. "Nah," I said, forcing a grin. "Just gonna miss her when she's off being a big-shot artist." Ellie rolled her eyes, but her smile was tight, and I knew she felt it too, the weight of things unsaid. The town was no kinder. At the grocery store, I overheard Mrs. Carter, the church organist, muttering about those types moving into the city nearby. My stomach churned. If she knew about me, about us, we'd be more than gossip, we'd be outcasts. But Ellie? She seemed fearless, sketching pride flags in her notebook, humming songs about freedom. I envied her courage, even as it scared me. One evening, we ended up at the old theater, our childhood haunt. The place was falling apart, but Ellie loved its faded glory. We snuck in through the back, the air thick with dust and memory. She spread a blanket on the stage, and we lay there, staring at the cracked ceiling. "Remember when we thought this place was magic?" she asked, her voice soft. "It still is," I said, turning to her. Her face was inches from mine, her breath warm. I could have counted her freckles, could have leaned in, and, God, I wanted to, but I didn't. Instead, I asked, "You scared about Seattle?" She shook her head. Not scared. Excited. But she hesitated, her fingers brushing mine. "I don't want to lose you, Ree." "You won't," I said, too fast, too desperate. Her eyes searched mine, and I felt like she could see right through me, see the truth I was too coward to say. "Promise?" she whispered. I nodded, my throat tight. "Promise." The next day, I found her at the lake again, this time with a letter in her hand. "What's that?" I asked, sitting beside her. She handed it to me, a letter from the art program, confirming her spot. "It's real now," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm really going." I wanted to be happy for her, but all I could think was how empty this town would be without her. That night, at the diner, she was quieter than usual, her eyes distant. I couldn't take it anymore. "Ellie," I said, leaning across the table. "What's going on? You're acting different." She looked at me, her lips parting, then closing. "Finally," she said, "I saw you, last week at the shop. You were looking at me like I was everything." My heart stopped. I'd thought I'd hidden it, thought I'd buried it deep. But she'd seen. "Ellie," I started, but she cut me off. "Don't lie to me," she said, her voice sharp. "I know you, Riley. I know when you're holding back." Her eyes were fire, and I was burning. "I'm not holding back," I lied, my voice cracking. She leaned closer, her hand grabbing mine. "Then tell me," she said. "Tell me what's in your head." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the words were stuck, trapped behind years of fear, of what-ifs, of a town that would never understand. Instead, I pulled my hand away, stood and muttered, "I can't." I walked out, the diner door slamming behind me, leaving her there. The rain was back, soaking me as I walked, but I didn't care. I'd hurt her, and it was killing me, but I couldn't face the truth, not yet. The next morning she was gone. Not to Seattle, not yet, but to her friend Mia's house, a few towns over. She left a note. "Need space. Be back soon." My heart sank. I'd pushed her away, and now she was slipping through my fingers. I spent the day at the shop, working until my hands bled, trying to outrun the guilt. When she came back 2 days later, she was different, quieter, guarded. We sat on the porch, the air thick with summer heat. "I'm sorry," I said finally, my voice rough. She looked at me, her eyes soft but wary. "For what?" she asked. I took a breath, the words clawing their way out. "For not being brave enough." Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. Instead, she reached for my hand, her fingers warm against mine. "You don't have to be brave alone," she said. And in that moment I knew I had to tell her. Soon. Before she left, before I lost her for good. The air felt heavier now, like the town itself was pressing down on me. Ellie's words, "You don't have to be brave alone," echoed in my head, a lifeline I was too scared to grab. With her leaving in 2 weeks, every second felt like a ticking clock, counting down to the moment I'd lose her. I tried to act normal, but normal was a lie. At breakfast, I'd catch her watching me, her eyes searching for something I wasn't ready to give. Our parents were oblivious, planning a farewell party for her, talking about Seattle like it was a dream come true. To me, it was a nightmare. I'd lose the girl who'd been my shadow, my light, my everything. One afternoon, I found her at the lake, sketching again. The water was still, reflecting the clouds, and she looked like she belonged there. Wild, free, untouchable. I sat beside her, my heart pounding. "You're gonna kill it in Seattle," I said, trying to sound upbeat. She didn't look up. "Stop it, she said, her voice sharp. "Stop pretending everything's fine." I froze. "I'm not," I started, but she cut me off, slamming her sketchbook shut. "You are," she said, her eyes blazing. "You've been weird for weeks, and I'm tired of it. If you've got something to say, say it." Her words were a challenge, a dare, and I felt like I was standing on a cliff. I opened my mouth, but fear choked me. Instead, I grabbed her sketchbook, flipping it open. The pages were filled with us, our hands, our eyes, moments I thought I'd hidden. "You see me?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "You always have." She softened, her hand brushing mine. "Then let me in," she said. "Please." I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I stood, muttering something about work, and left her there, her eyes burning into my back. At the shop, I threw myself into fixing a busted carburetor, but my hands shook. Mike noticed, of course. "Kid, you're a mess," he said, tossing me a rag. "Go fix whatever's breaking you." That night, I found Ellie at the diner alone, staring out the window. I slid into the booth, my heart in my throat. "I'm sorry," I said. She didn't look at me. "For what?" she asked, her voice flat. I took a breath, the words fighting to get out. "For being scared. For loving you too much." Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. "What did you say?" she whispered. I panicked, backtracking. "I mean as a sister. I love you like that." The lie tasted bitter, and her face fell. "Right," she said, standing. "As a sister." She walked out, leaving me with the weight of my cowardice. The next day, I found her at the theater, curled up on our old blanket. "Ellie," I said, sitting beside her. "I didn't mean it."
Not like that.
She looked at me, her eyes red. "Then how?" she asked, her voice raw. "Tell me, Ree. Because I'm leaving, and I can't take this anymore." I took her hand, my heart racing. "I love you," I said, the words spilling out. "Not like a sister. Like I can't breathe without you." The silence was deafening. Her eyes searched mine, and then, slowly, she leaned in, her lips brushing mine. It was soft, tentative, but it set my world on fire. We pulled back, both of us trembling. "Ellie," I whispered, but she shook her head. "Don't," she said. "Not yet. I need time." She stood, leaving me there, my heart in pieces. I'd said it, finally, but it felt like I'd lost her anyway. The next few days were torture. Ellie was distant, spending more time with Mia, avoiding me. I threw myself into work, but the shop felt emptier without her dropping by with coffee or sketches. At night, I'd lie awake, replaying that kiss, wondering if I'd ruined everything. Then one evening, she showed up at the shop, her eyes fierce. "We need to talk," she said, pulling me outside. The air was cool, the stars bright. "I'm scared, Ree," she said. It's big. It's messy. But I feel it too." My heart soared, but before I could speak, she added, "But we can't. Not here. Not like this." Her words were a knife, but I understood. This town, our family, it'd tear us apart. "Then come with me," I said, desperate. "To Seattle. Anywhere." She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "I want to," she said, "but I don't know if I'm brave enough." We stood there, the world holding its breath, and I knew we were at a crossroads. Love was a rebellion, and we were on the edge of it. Ellie's words hung between us like smoke, impossible to grasp but choking all the same. She felt it too, the love, the pull, but she was scared, and so was I. With her leaving in 10 days, the clock was merciless, ticking louder with every glance we shared. The town was buzzing with her farewell party plans, our parents oblivious to the storm brewing between us. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think without seeing her face, that kiss, the way her lips had trembled against mine. I'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. At the shop, I was useless, my hands fumbling, my mind elsewhere. Mike finally sent me home, saying, "Get your head on straight, Riley, or you'll break something." But I was already broken. Ellie was my heart, and she was slipping away. I found her at the lake, painting again, her canvas a riot of color, our story in strokes of blue and red. I sat beside her, silent, afraid to shatter the moment. Finally, she spoke. "I can't stop thinking about it," she said, her voice low.
You. Us.
That kiss. My heart raced. "Me neither," I admitted. "But you said we can't." She looked at me, her eyes raw. "I want to God, I want to. But this town, our parents, they'd never understand." I knew she was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. "Then let's leave," I said, my voice desperate.
Together.
"Seattle, somewhere else, anywhere but here." Her laugh was bitter. And what? Run away? Live a lie? You know what they'd say about us. I grabbed her hand, my grip tight. I don't care what they say. I care about you. Her eyes softened, but she pulled away. I need time, she said, standing. I'm not ready. The next day, I saw her with Mia at the diner, laughing, but her eyes were distant. I felt like an intruder, watching the girl I loved slip further away. That night, I found her sketchbook on the porch, left open to a drawing of us. 2 figures, hands clasped, standing against a storm. It was a sign of hope, and it gave me courage. I confronted her at the theater, our old sanctuary. Ellie, I said, my voice steady for the first time. I'm done hiding. I love you. I've loved you for years, and I'll love you no matter where we are. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, I love you too, but I'm scared. I stepped closer, my hands cupping her face. Then be scared with me, I said. We'll figure it out. Together. This time when I kissed her, she didn't pull away. It was fierce, desperate, a promise in the dark. When we broke apart, she was crying, but she was smiling too. Okay, she said.
Together.
The next few days were a whirlwind. We were careful, stealing moments when no one was watching, her hand brushing mine, a glance that said everything. But the town was small, and eyes were everywhere. At the farewell party, I caught Mrs. Carter watching us, her lips pursed. My stomach twisted. We weren't safe here. That night, Ellie snuck into my room, her eyes bright with fear and determination. I'm ready, she said. Let's go. Seattle.
Now.
My heart leapt, but reality crashed in. We need a plan, I said. Money, a place to stay. She cut me off. I don't care. I can't stay here, pretending I don't love you. We spent the night planning, whispering about apartments, jobs, a life where we could be us. But the fear was still there, a shadow we couldn't outrun. The next morning, our parents found her sketchbook, left carelessly open to that drawing of us. Mom's face went pale. What is this? She asked, her voice shaking. Ellie froze, but I stepped forward. It's us, I said, my voice steady. We're in love. The room went silent, the air thick with shock. Dad's face hardened. This isn't right, he said. You're sisters. Ellie's hand found mine, her grip fierce. Not by blood, she said, and not in our hearts. The argument was brutal. Tears, accusations, words we couldn't take back. They told us to leave, to fix ourselves. We packed our bags that night, the house suffocating. As we stood at the door, Ellie looked back, tears in her eyes. This was home, she whispered. I squeezed her hand. We'll make a new one. We drove to Seattle, the roads stretching out like a promise. The city was alive, bright, a world away from our small town. But the fear lingered. Could we really do this? Could love be enough? Seattle was a shock of color and noise, a city that didn't care who we were or who we loved. We found a tiny apartment above a coffee shop, the walls thin and the pipes loud, but it was ours. Ellie's laughter filled the space, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. But freedom came with a price. Our parents' words echoed, not right, fix yourselves, and the town's judgment followed us in whispers from old friends who'd heard. Ellie threw herself into her art program, her sketches bursting with life, but I saw the shadows in her eyes. Leaving home had cost her, and I hated that I was part of that pain. I got a job at a garage, the work familiar, grounding. But every night, when I came home to Ellie, my heart raced. We were careful, even here, holding hands only in private, stealing kisses in the dark. Seattle was kinder, but it wasn't perfect. We'd seen the looks, heard the slurs. Love was a fight, and we were learning how to swing. One evening, Ellie came home with paint on her cheek, her eyes bright. I got into a gallery show, she said, throwing her arms around me. I laughed, spinning her around our cramped living room. "Told you you'd take the city by storm," I said, kissing her. Her lips were warm, and for a moment, the world was perfect. But perfection didn't last. That night, she got a call from Mom. I heard the tears in her voice as she hung up. "They want me to come back," she said, her voice small. They think we can work this out." My stomach twisted. "Do you want to?" I asked, terrified of her answer. She shook her head, but her eyes were haunted. "I don't know, Ree. They're family."
Family.
The word was a blade. I wanted to be her family, her home, but I couldn't erase the past. "We don't need them," I said, my voice fiercer than I felt. "We have each other." She nodded, but the doubt lingered, a crack in our foundation. The next week was tense. Ellie was distracted, her sketches darker, her smiles rare. I tried to keep things light, cooking her favorite meals, dragging her to the pier to watch the sunset. But one night she broke. "What if we're wrong?" she asked, her voice breaking. "What if this is unnatural?" I felt like I'd been slapped. "You don't believe that," I said, grabbing her hands. "You know what we have is real." She cried, burying her face in my shoulder. "I know," she whispered. "But it's hard, Ree. It's so hard." I held her, my own tears falling, and promised we'd make it through. The gallery show was a turning point. Ellie's art was raw, powerful, our story in every stroke. People whispered, some with awe, some with judgment, but she stood tall, her hand in mine. "This is us," she told the crowd, her voice steady. "This is love." I'd never been prouder or more terrified. After, we walked home, the city alive around us. "I'm not going back," she said suddenly, her eyes fierce. "This is where I belong. With you." I kissed her under a street lamp, the world fading away. But the next day, a letter came from Dad. Harsh, final, cutting us off for good. Ellie read it, her face pale, then tore it up. "We don't need them," she said, echoing my words. But I saw the pain in her eyes. "We build a life, piece by piece." I fixed cars, she painted, and we found friends who didn't care about our past. But the shadows lingered, letters unanswered, calls ignored. One night, Ellie woke me, her voice urgent. "I want to go back," she said. "Not to stay. Just to face them." I didn't want to, but I nodded. We drove back to Oregon, the town unchanged, suffocating. Our parents were cold, their words sharp. "You're confused," Mom said. "Your sisters." Ellie stood tall, her hand in mine. "We're not," she said. "We're in love. And we're happy." Dad's face was stone, but Mom's eyes softened, just for a moment. We left, the weight of their rejection heavy but not crushing. On the drive back, Ellie leaned against me, her hand on my knee. "We're enough," she said. And for the first time, I believed her. Back in Seattle, the city felt like a promise kept. Our apartment was small, but it was home. Our home, built on love and defiance. Ellie's art was gaining traction, her gallery show a quiet triumph, and I was finding my place in the garage, my hands steady again. But the scars of our past lingered, faint but present, like cracks in a foundation. We were careful still. The world wasn't as kind as we'd hoped. Slurs scrawled on our mailbox, whispers at the coffee shop below. But we had each other, and that was enough. Ellie's laughter was my anchor, her touch my refuge. Every night, we'd curl up together, her head on my chest, and I'd think, this is worth it. This is everything. One evening, she came home with a new sketch, a portrait of us, older, lines on our faces, hands still clasped. "This is us in 10 years, she said, her eyes bright. "Still here. Still fighting." I kissed her, my heart full. "Always," I said. But doubt crept in. Could we keep fighting? Could love survive a world that didn't always want it? The answer came slowly, in moments. A neighbor who smiled instead of stared. A friend who invited us to dinner. No questions asked. A gallery owner who saw Ellie's talent, not our story. Seattle wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and we were building something real. One night, Ellie got a call from Mia. Our parents had reached out, asking about us.
They miss you, Mia said.
Ellie's face was unreadable as she hung up. What do you think? I asked, my voice tight. She sighed, leaning against me. I miss them too, she said. But I don't miss who I had to be. We talked for hours, weighing the past against the future. Finally, she wrote them a letter, not begging, not apologizing, just honest. We're happy. We're in love. We hope one day you'll see that. We mailed it, knowing it might change nothing.
But it was enough to try.
Months passed and life settled. Ellie's art was in another show, and I'd started taking night classes, dreaming of something bigger. We were growing together, our love a quiet strength. One evening, at the pier, she pulled me close, the city sparkling behind us. I'm glad we did this, she said. I'm glad I fell in love with you. I smiled, my heart full. Me too, lil sis, I said, the old nickname soft now reclaimed. She laughed, shoving me playfully, and we kissed, the world fading away. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. A love that had defied a town, a family, a world that didn't understand. The next year, a letter came. Mom's handwriting, shaky but clear. We're trying, it said. We want to see you. We cried, holding each other, knowing it wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a start. We drove back, nervous but hopeful, and found them waiting, awkward, unsure, but there. We talked, not about everything but enough. It was a step, a crack in the wall. Back in Seattle, we kept building. Ellie painted, I studied, and we loved, fiercely, unapologetically. The world wasn't always kind, but we were stronger. One night, under the stars, she proposed, her voice trembling. Marry me, Ree, she said, a ring glinting in her hand. I laughed, tears falling, and said yes. Our wedding was small, just us and a few friends, the city our witness. We vowed to fight, to love, to be each other's home. And as we danced, her head on my shoulder, I knew. This was the moment I fell in love with her, over and over, every day. Not the girl I called sister, but the woman who'd become my everything. The town faded into memory, its judgment a distant echo. We were Riley and Ellie, two women who'd chosen love over fear, who'd built a life from a spark in a diner. And as we stood together, hands clasped, I knew we'd keep fighting. For us, for love, for a world that might one day understand.